don't underestimate how far you can go with your running. It would be even more exciting if you had no background at all in sport. Like when I started, I had a background in sport. I knew that I had an endurance base from football and all the other sports that I was playing. So when I started cross country running when I was 11 years old, I just wanted to be good at it. I guess I wanted to impress my teachers. I guess I wanted to impress my dad. I was just good at it. So then when I stopped running, when I was 17, 18, and didn't run again until I was 27, I knew I had something. I knew I had some natural talent, an aerobic base that I could tap into or build up again and then become good. So I knew I had that there. But if I didn't have that there, then the opportunity, the potential would be unlimited. So whether you ran at school and you're just getting back into running, or you've not been running for a while and you're getting back to it and you're trying to put that discipline back into your life, that structure back into your life to get good, just know that the potential is unbelievably unlimited. Like the journey for me was pretty wild, especially in the first exciting years. Like 2009, I was cycle touring for the entire year. 2009, I was on the bike and I was thinking, what am I doing with my life? What do I really want to do? Do I want to be this career focused? Do I want to be doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week? And I was doing that level of work, like literally working every day in order to get ahead, in order to make as much money as I possibly could in my recruitment career, in order to get promoted, in order to drive nice cars, live in nice places, etc. And that felt right for me at the time when I was doing it in Manchester. But then afterwards, and after kind of reflection, and as you get into your early 20s and you start to realize that what am I actually doing? Like what makes you happy was one of the questions that came up when I was on the bike for like 12 hours a day, 10, 12 hours a day in Southeast Asia. That question came up, what makes you happy? Sport makes me happy. This makes me happy. This exploring in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Laos, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, this makes me happy. Not knowing where the village or the town that I'm going to hit today, not knowing how far I can, just getting on the bike and going as far as you possibly can, finding some kind of hotel, and there were some really bad ones, and then doing exactly the same, eating and then doing exactly the same tomorrow on the most amazing sleep, no matter how bad the hotel room was, because that's just was part of the journey. I was trying to make long distances. So then I was like, okay, well, what makes you happy? And then what made me happy was when I was a kid, I was good at track and field in the summer and cross country in the winter. And I loved playing all the other sports. So it was like, okay, how can I make running into a full-time gig? How can I make that happen? And this 2010, January 3rd or 4th, I started running and I went out for a run, and I thought because of all the cycling fitness that I'd just go out for an hour and it'd be an easy hour and then I could carry on with my day. I went out for a run, I got about 400 meters and I had to walk back because I think I'd pulled my quad. I wasn't warmed up properly, I didn't know about pacing, I got off too quick. And that cycling fitness hadn't translated into running fitness. So I had to do that first. That was January 3rd or 4th, 2010. By May of the same, so 5 months later, I did 10K, Bupa 10K in Manchester. I did about 39.40 or 39.50. It was under 40 minutes. I can't check it because a friend of mine gave me a bib, and I ran under that name, so I can't remember the guy's name. I should find it, but I'd done some 5Ks, I'd done some park runs, I'd done an 18:30, then I'd done a 16:20, which started to get quite quick, but at shorter distances. I was doing a lot of like interval training on the treadmill, and everything was offline. Everything was kind of offline training plans. And then I did that sub 40 minute 10K in May. And then somebody posted on my Facebook wall, why don't you come and do a 50K uphill race in Granada in August, which was like June, July. I think I had about 10 weeks to train for it. Then I was living in Sweden, so I was on a treadmill every day. I was on a treadmill every training session, so I was training hard twice a week and going hard uphill, just basically going as slow as I possibly could uphill at 5-6%, because that was the gradient of the race, for an hour, then an hour and a quarter, then an hour and a half, then 2 hours, then 2.5 hours. And eventually I thought, okay, I might be able to go there and finish under the cutoff time, which was 8 hours. I finished that race, I came 38th. I remember coming 38th, and I finished in less than 6 hours. And then all of a sudden it was like, first of all, I'm in love with this city, Granada. I want to live here. How do I make that work? So again, how do I become a full-time runner, and how do I live here? So hopefully the two, a combination of the two is amazing. If I can be a full-time runner here, that's my dream. So I worked on that, and that was 2010. 2012, I moved over. It took me about 2.5 years. And then I ended up saving up and basically sponsoring myself for the first year. And then after about 6 months of that first year, I got my first contract, which was like, somebody is paying me to run. It was amazing it was unbelievable for me. I remember celebrating, being so happy that what I'd done as a kid and done well at, all of a sudden somebody would be willing to pay me to do that. So that was my first sponsor. I will always be grateful to them. But then it was, okay, so that was May 2010. Then it was in my head, I want to live in Granada, and if I can get better at that race, which is the first Sunday of every August, if I can get better at that race, which is 50k uphill, I'm going to become better at all running. I'll get better at 10k, half marathon, because this is supposed to be the hardest race in the world, and every race says that, but this is a hard race. 50k uphill in the heat, and then finishing at altitude at 3,350 meters. It's a hard race. So if I could get better at that, I'd become better at a marathon, I'd become better at ultra marathon running. And that's about 4 hours running, this 50k uphill. If you're doing it quick, if you're getting on the podium, you're going to be doing about 4 hours. If I can win this race one day, then I'm going to be one of the best runners. And so that became my goal. And with that became, okay, the next year, 2011, I signed up for Barcelona Marathon. I went for a sub 3 hour marathon. I remember running the first half, 1:29. I thought, this is easy, I should speed up, I'm gonna easily beat 3 hours. About a kilometer after, I remember it so clearly. I just passed a drink station, I'd just gone past halfway, gone past the drink station. It was about 22 kilometers, and then I felt as if somebody had shot me in the hamstring. I must have just pulled my hamstring off, micro tear in my hamstring. And then for the next hour and 55 minutes, I think I finished in about 3:25, 3:27. It took nearly 2 hours to get to the finish, but I hobbled all the way. And because I'd gone out in 1:29 and then run the second half in nearly 2 hours, I think about 2,000 people came past me, and that's demoralizing. When you start to get passed by people who are dressed in fancy dress, that's painful. But then again, it was another fight. I failed miserably, but it was another fire. And the next year I went back to Seville in 2012, and I was just, okay, let's run this sub 3 marathon. And then I remember at 3 o'clock in the morning, there was parties going on in the hotel, and I was on my phone calculator, which is like an 8210, a Nokia 8210, or one of the small ones. And I was calculating the pace per kilometer that I would need to run, or that I thought I could run, and I calculated it at something like 3:45 per kilometer, and that came out at sub 2:40 marathon. I thought, would I be happy if I crossed the finish line in sub 3 hours? And I felt to myself that I could already do that 12 months ago at Barcelona in March 2011. Why am I aiming for the same target in February 2012? I should be going much faster. And I'd already kind of done some half marathons and 10Ks that had suggested that I should be faster. I just felt in that Seville marathon like I was gonna stay safe and just gonna check that box off. And that's not what life is all about, checking boxes off. Ticking boxes just for the sake of it just didn't excite me. I felt that if I crossed the finish line in 2:58 or 2:59, I wouldn't be happy. So I was there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I decided to go for a 2 hour 40 marathon. And for anybody who has run a half marathon or marathon or ultra marathon, you'll know that you can't go out for a sub 3 hour marathon and feel good and then get a 2:40. It's just not going to happen. You can't speed up to that. It's got to be evenly paced. So I went out in 1:19. Ended up doing a negative split. It's a really fast course at Seville, and it was perfect temperatures, and I felt amazing. Cats just leapt from the kitchen island to the desk and tripped over, which was hilarious. But I went out in 1:19, and I was feeling great in the second half. I came back in 1:18 and ran 2:37. I think 2:37 dead, or very close to 2:37 dead, and I was ecstatic. And then, for me, that was serious. I felt that as an ultra runner, and I define myself as an ultra runner, this is what I want to be good at, ultra running. If I can run 2:37, and then I can run a sub 2:30 or a sub 22:25, I can be a serious ultra runner, which was the case at the time. Now you've got ultra runners running 2:10 and 2:15. At the time, that was a serious time for an ultra marathon runner. So it fed into everything really nicely. And then that August 2012, I was doing even better every August at the key race, and I'd moved to Granada in 2012. So everything came from just going out for a 400 meter, going out for an hour run and not getting 400 meters and having to walk back to my house with my tail between my legs. So your progress can be immense. You just take your time with it, have some structure, and just go for it.